And today we have a guest. It is my pastor, Pastor Dee Dee Hecker, and I am just waiting for her to get in here. Let's see, one moment. Oh,
Hold on.
there she is. Good morning,
Ah,
Pastor. Hi.
hello, hello.
Like
I
I
can hardly hear you. Hold on just a second. Let me
okay, we'll both.
adjust it.
I can,
Thought I was going live from my page, and it's the ladies' lounge, not DeAndrea Hackett.
I apologize because that's who we were inviting, the lady. That's on the flyer and
Yes.
everything. I am sorry. We're inviting the whole lounge.
Yes. So I am going to yeah, we're good. I got it.
Okay, perfect. First of all, I want to say good morning. I'm so honored that my pastor decided to
Yay.
join me. We have such similar stories. We call ourselves spiritual twins because
Yes.
it's just so ridiculous with our stories. And I always say every time I get before I get on here, I'm so nervous, but she is so easy to talk to. And she's just the most loving person and very encouraging. I'm just so grateful that God saw fit to put me to minister with these lovely people with Equip Church. Her and her husband are just amazing people, and they believe in loving well, like I do.
Amen.
So we're gonna
Yes.
jump into this thing because we call it lethal loyalties. She say, how do you say it? Loyal to the soil. When I heard that, I almost fell out my chair.
Yeah.
But this pretty much. So we're on part five, and it is early start, early struggles. And so we're
Mhm.
gonna just jump into it. How old were you when you started this relationship?
Um, it's 15 officially. I'll wait for the other question. So 15 officially,
Okay.
which is a doozy in itself
It's a doozy in
because
itself.
he was 20.
Yes. So our last person, I believe she was 15 as well. So that is interesting that about that. And his age, we're not gonna say anything. So moving on to the harder, what was this relationship like for you?
Um, so a couple of things. I want to say that relationships, we are conditioned for lethal loyalty well before we enter into the relationship.
Break it
And
down,
so,
Pastor.
um, you know, the initially it felt like, anytime you start a relationship on the back of another one, it's called that rebound effect.
Yes.
It is never. Um, I've seen them be really, really disappointing, right? Because we say, the grass is greener on the other side, and you realize I've said this over and over about the relationship. I thought the grass would be greener on the other side, and it was rocks, desert, and a bunch
Mm,
of tumbleweeds. There was no green grass. There wasn't even artificial grass. It was very, very painful. But the truth of the matter is, I wasn't even supposed to be in intimate relationships. So
mm,
to even be in a rebound relationship at 15 tells you that I was conditioned to accept
yes.
abuse, period, because I needed to be in the books. I had no business on a rebound situation in the first place. And so the relationship was based on a lot of childhood trauma that I had begun to accept. And so I think he was probably one of the first people that I told that I was sexually abused by my
Mm,
female babysitter.
mm,
And one of the first people I was able to say, like, what how I felt that my mom was
right.
rejecting me, and
Mm,
my dad was
mm,
gay. I hadn't really told anybody that he was grown. And
yeah.
so it was really a father figure I was looking for the whole time. And so the relationship was based on me being able to say to him what I would be able to say to a father had I had
That
one.
makes
And
a lot
so,
of sense.
um, but if you have someone that is young and, foolish and not saved and got their own childhood trauma, and you see someone that needs your validation and you are not in a position to steward that well, abuse of some sort is inevitable,
Yes.
even if it is not physical or, and so initially it was built on, I'm telling you my secrets and my household situation and my frustrations with my mom and my frustrations with my family, my frustrations with my friend. And when there's an abuser or a manipulative personality, you don't realize that they are going to use that information against you later
Yeah.
and against your family later.
Yes.
And that's what happened. Like, it was literally a relationship of, before the physical abuse started,
Mm.
mental abuse and cleanup. Like, if I was able to say, my sister hurt my feelings and I don't like how she made me
Right.
feel, that would be a dangling carrot to
Mm.
now do whatever you wanted to do. Or my sister would know that what I trusted you with, she would end up knowing it. And so now I'm trying to play, keep you on my good side so, my secrets won't be
Right.
exposed.
Right. It's
A
like
very
keeping,
unhealthy relationship.
yeah, I was gonna say keeping everybody else the bad guy so that
Yes.
you look like you admire this person constantly. And when I got first got married, he was older than me too. So we had this viewpoint because I was raised in the church and I know you were as well. I was very sheltered. So this person who had all this street knowledge and all this
Yeah.
stuff you believe in, and you trust them, and what they appear to be saying looks really true. And I mean, like it's the truth.
Yeah.
So do you mind getting more into the abuse and when you started to know that you probably need to leave? How long did it take you to
I
get
was long.
there?
Yeah. That, I think that, when you have parents that are saved, um, and that are really praying for your safety, even flawed parents that are saved. And
Yes.
so this was one of the issues with me and my mother. My mother, I saw her flaws on 3D because you live in a
Mm,
house with people. And so I saw her flaws magnified, and it made me distrust what who she was spiritually.
yes.
But baby, God speak to his children, okay?
Come on, God
And so
speaks.
and so she was praying, and praying for me and things. And I remember saying to her and my auntie, they were warning me
Mm,
about, he was older and I was still trying to go to the club and doing all the things. And um, I remember them warning me, and I said to them, y'all just mad because y'all don't have nobody. I said that.
I believe you said that.
Directing choirs,
Mm,
church choirs, and going to purity class. And I'd already lost my virginity at this point, so he wasn't the one that took my virginity, but or that I gave it away to.
yes.
Actually, I lost it really with a babysitter that was molesting me. I
Oh,
had no
yeah,
idea.
yeah,
And
that is
so there
true.
was a lot of bitterness toward my
Mhm.
mother because she hadn't figured out that I was being molested.
Right.
So a lot of my anger toward her and even being sassy played, it came from that childhood trauma. It wasn't like I just woke up and I'm just this bitter teenager, and you
Exactly.
have that on top of it.
Mhm.
Teenagers frontal lobe disconnect and they need to be reconnected, and it take a little bit of time. But a lot of it was I was really, really bitter with her for not figuring out this woman was touching me, and I'm
Yes.
having all of these emotions. Um, do I like women? Because the first person that tampered with me was a woman, and it didn't hurt.
Mm,
So do I like women? My dad is gay. I found out my dad is gay, and I'm like, well, if I like women, that's wrong because my dad is gay, and not because gay was wrong, but that took him away from me.
yes.
And then when I read some scripture, I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't be gay.
Right.
But sleeping with a bunch of people is the same sin. Like
Same
it's
sin.
equally,
In
but
Jesus'
in my
eyes, it all looks
mind,
the same.
it was justified because
Yes.
church, you're taught to have levels of sin,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
You're taught to have levels of of things that are acceptable and not
Yes.
acceptable. And so because I was like, Mama, listen, I wasn't under her covering of protection because she couldn't tell me nothing because I already felt unprotected from the
Yes.
woman that was molesting me. I was already feeling unprotected from that. And so, Mom, you can't help me because you didn't protect me to begin with. And so let me disregard. So God spoke to her and said, um, pride comes before destruction. I will never forget it. I was sitting in her, I believe she had this Toyota, little tan Toyota, and a haughty spirit before a fall. I
Mm.
remember her saying that, and I was like, oh Lord, just like my kids was doing to me, oh Father, here she go. And it wasn't, I don't think it was a week later that I received my first physical hit after
And you
that.
said your
My first,
first. So
my,
if you said your first,
yeah.
then it means it was a second and possibly more.
Yes. And so many people, I've counseled many people that say, it's going to get better. It isn't that bad. And I always say it graduates. It is
Yes.
not something that you can control. You cannot change an individual. And maybe your toxic traits bring out the foolishness in them too. Sometimes it is not just the individual. A lot of the times people assume, and then people assume it's only men,
Yeah.
and it's not. The reason I accepted abuse from a man because a woman abused me first.
Yes.
You understand what I'm
Yes. I
saying? So my mother warned
understand.
me a week later, not even a week later, I don't think it was, I received my first physical hit, but I had been getting verbal hits the entire time that allowed him to know that maybe I can try this. Or and I think sometimes you're so out of control of your flesh that you have come into agreement with the
Yes.
enemy that you don't realize that you're overtaken until you're put in a position of anger and fear and things, and then that reaction looks like this is who you are, but really it is the enemy that you have come into agreement with, that you were tricked by, if
Exactly.
that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And at this point, did you have any children? Because you staying in this relationship, you're explaining how it affected you, but how did
Right.
it affect children that possibly came into this relationship as well?
Yeah, so I did. I had a son at the time, a newborn son, and so um and it affects kids at a cellular level.
Yes,
It
it
can't help
does.
but to affect children. And I always tell this story, fast forward some years after I have two children. I'm married. Actually, I think by this time I may have had four kids, newly married, and my son, we're playing a pillow fight and we're doing
Hmm.
this thing. And I remember my oldest son stopped in the middle of the pillow fight and said, Mom, you used to get beat up. And he remembered what I thought I had left. I thought I had
Yes.
left it early enough for him not to ever
Remember.
remember that, but he remembered it because it was in his bones.
Yes.
It was there. You know, when you are beaten in front of your children or carrying children, because it happened both. I was beaten pregnant. I was thrown down the stairs in front of kids, like a lot of things, um, and I have an understanding because I'm not mad at anybody.
Right.
The
Absolutely.
Lord allowed me to drive down the street of my sexual abuser the other day, and the lady that abused me, and it was an accident. I wasn't trying to do that, but there was nothing there.
Yeah, that's
There was
praise
no
God.
um, there was no remorse, regret. I wish I hadn't gone. None of that. Nothing
Such a
was left.
blessing. Yes.
And what I had blown up to this
Mhm.
big place and this big yard and this big traumatic situation was a little small blip on the map. Before I knew it, I was gone. I passed by. And I remember when God initially healed me, I was like, I really want to pray for her. I want to talk to her.
Yes.
I want to see what happened in her childhood that started that trauma. And so when I say this about the next abusers, because you are conditioned for
Yes.
abusers, not just
Mhm.
one. When you accept abuse or when abuse is introduced to you early on, Um, you know, people say, oh, you're just making an excuse for abusers. You're still not healed. No, that's not an excuse. That's healed.
Yeah.
People that are not yet healed from their abusers see you forgiving, see you loving, see you
Yeah.
saying, we weren't supposed to be together. They did come into agreement with the enemy, and they didn't even know they were overtaken by the enemy. Any of the abusers,
Right.
any abusers. Some people know, like, I made a covenant with the devil. Everybody don't know that,
Right.
right? But when I say this for the man that abused me, like, he had his own childhood trauma.
Mm-hmm.
There was some things in his DNA he didn't know was in there.
Yeah.
There are some things that he had came into agreement with. Whenever you do not check anger, you come into agreement with an enemy and you don't even realize that you're overtaken. And that's for any of us.
Anybody. Yes. I 100%
So it
agree.
does affect, it does and has affected my children and my children that I had with a healthy husband
Mm-hmm.
that I loved, very well, because when you have been abused, you parent from, and you don't get healed,
Everything from trauma.
you
Come on.
parent from a traumatic place.
Yes.
And now I'm protecting them from everybody that is not necessarily abusive.
That's good.
Now
That's a
I'm
really good
terrified.
point.
My middle son says something, he's a bold one. He gonna say everything. He said, Mom, we weren't molested. We did not get abused. You won't let us spend the night. You won't let us go nowhere. Can't nobody babysit us. Can't
That's
nobody,
so good.
because you did not get healed and you're parenting us from your pain.
Ooh.
And he was like 12 or 13 then, and we always say, what is he supposed to be doing? I think I know what he's supposed to be doing, because he's just a truth teller. He could tell
But insight though.
when we were not healed. He could tell when
Yes.
we were under abusive leaders. Mom, what are you doing? This is abuse. This is not, everybody's walking around fearful of a man.
Yeah.
And he didn't realize I was conditioned to accept abuse
Yeah.
when I hid the molester.
Yes. Yes.
And then when I hid the next guy, and when I hid
Right.
the next guy. And so people that have been abused, it will affect your children because you pick from
Mm.
that
Yes.
every area of your life. You pick friends that are not healthy, whole, and they might be
Oof.
abusive friendships. So of course,
Of
if they're your
course.
close friend,
And I
they're
think
going to
it's the familiar. It just feels
familiar
familiar.
line
It
and
gives you
security
comfort.
blanket.
I hate to say
Yes,
safe because it's not, but it makes you feel a
yes,
comfort, a
yes.
particular comfort. Now I know you were young, so I don't think you've had your own place. Were you still going to church? And what kind of support did that look like? Or were you like me and you just felt like who who you gonna tell at the church?
So my first black eye that I received, the physical
Mhm.
and the verbal abuse, I was still in church because I was still under my mama's house and rules and
I thought
things.
so. Mhm.
And so I was still in church, active in church, in the choir, leading the choir, directing choirs, doing all the things, right? Um, and it was, and well, let me back up. The fifth, the mental abuse, the
Mhm.
verbal abuse, I was still in church. By the time the physical abuse started, I'd had my baby already, and I was very embarrassed because I didn't have this baby out of wedlock, which the baby is not the problem. I should have been embarrassed for the sin that I was committing, but um, most of the people that would even say anything that was in my sphere was judgmental of the act and what was a result of the sex. They were not discerning. So their discernment was from their what they could physically see. Your belly is big and now you have a baby. It wasn't um, from a place that, to me, spiritual people should be discerning from, because a lot of them that were judging this baby should have been discerning when I was 5
Yeah.
and fast,
Yes.
because I was getting molested at 5. 5-year-olds are not just fast.
No, they're
5-year-olds are
not.
not just trying to do stuff. And so, in my opinion, because I was still at the same church, in my opinion, um, I did not have support because I was being judged as a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old. Keep your baby away. She fast. She whatever. And they spiritual, and the Lord showed me, and their discernment is on 10. And when I found out a lot of them had babies out of wedlock, a lot of them had been molested, a lot of them had been molested in church by whomever. I'm like, baby, you ain't see my eyeballs look like your eyeballs. And so, of course, fast forward, you didn't support me then. So there wasn't much support
Right.
once I had the baby, and when I was trying to cover up black eyes with makeup. And then I eventually left for a season, and I would bring my kids to
Yeah.
church sporadically until I got saved, because I had two by 19.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got saved at 21. And then I was there in full force.
Yes.
But there was not support, because if I support you, it looks like I am condoning your sin. And you're not condoning my sin. You're rescuing my life.
Yes. And that's a place that I've been praying about and asking God to show me how to get the message across. You can have your belief, and it doesn't take away what you believe to love someone, to be able to love them no matter what they're
Yeah.
doing. You don't have to like it, but that's what love, that's the kind of love God calls. No, I mean to look past your pregnancy and to love Dee Dee because she needs help. My gosh, to, and I just use it as an example. No, you can be pro-life with the abortion, but can you love the person enough to go with them because they don't have nobody? Can we
Yes.
get, can we love people enough past the sin and not throw people away? And that's just, and I know you're like this, like me. We just have to, man, just get there.
And in that season, I will say this: I am 100% pro-life because I've had an abortion,
Yeah, okay, come
and
on.
I know what that feels like. I
Yes.
remember a Christian man, holding a sign when I had that abortion at 15 years old.
Hmm.
So, mind you, I had an abortion at 15 by somebody else, because abortions don't fix it. They don't
No,
fix what's going
you go,
on.
no, they
And
don't.
6 months later, I met and had another child as a teenager. And I had two by 19, so three pregnancies by 19.
Mhm.
Um, but what I've noticed oftentimes with pro life, the movement, not the revelation from God.
Come on.
Because we can be in such a movement that our cause trumps Christ. A lot of people, you are more cause minded than Christ
Yes.
minded. You are more, whatever your denomination is, trumps what Christ is, or your pastors surpass Christ. What I learned about that movement, and not the ones that had the revelation from Jesus Christ, is I'm pro life. I'm going to take the babies, but we discard the mothers and their actions. There is nothing in place to protect the mothers. I have a lot of friends that have adopted kids. I'm in my sphere of influence. I have a lot of people that I know that adopted those, that they would have been fighting for those women to keep.
Yes.
And what I found is the way that the mothers are referred to, they don't have names. They don't have trauma. They don't have, bio mom or bio dad. It's like, or what they are doing. It's like, so God gave you the ability to adopt this baby that we believe should live.
Yes.
And I believe that
Yes,
personally.
ma'am.
But the same God did not tell you, the same God did
Take
not
your time,
say,
Pastor.
don't judge them from their fruit. There's a root system on why they ended
Root
up here.
system.
And if it
Yes.
wasn't for God's grace, you wouldn't be in a position to adopt. You would be doing
Yes.
the exact same thing. You were 2 steps away from being a crackhead. And now you're judging the mother who maybe had my story,
Yes.
molested by this woman, molested by some of the women, their stories. I went to a prison a couple of weeks ago to support some inmates in this expo that they did, and a lot of them, I'm looking in the faces of women that has lost custody of their
Yes.
children, that have been in prison long enough to never meet their grandchildren. My heart broke for them.
Yes.
There's no way you can have the love of Jesus that is shed abroad in our heart, and that brings you to point fingers and
No
judge, versus
way.
to love. And the Bible says, by love and kindness have I drawn you all,
Yes.
not by judgment and finger pointing. God has given you the ability to adopt a baby. This is the other thing. That mama's DNA is in that baby.
Yep.
That mama's trauma is in that baby. So go ahead and adopt them and
Go
don't
ahead.
forgive the mother. Go
Mm.
ahead and adopt them and dog
Right.
the mother. Go ahead and adopt them. You're going to repeat it with the babies
Yep.
and wonder, should I have even gotten involved? You do. We do it with our own kids. People say I'm not adopting because what if they whatever. Yeah, you're going to experience with your own
Ma'am.
kids. You know, your own babies that you gave birth to. But what I've learned is we don't have our theology, what we say we know and believe about God, is not married to our real time life. It has not become one with our reality. If
Yes.
you say, I know and believe that God is a good God, He's faithful, He came to save sinners, I'm the chief one, and then we don't have a plan in place for salvation for the mamas that we adopted from, the mamas that was on crack and on drugs and on whatever, and I don't even know how we got here, on the pro-life,
Right.
there's not a plan in place for moms, and many of those that are hanging under the pro-life banner and not and judging and dogging the community that they're adopting the kids from
Right.
are in church. That's how we got there.
That's how we got.
Because the support from the church often is null and void for the adults.
Yes.
Let me get the babies, because is the blood of Jesus good enough for those mothers, for those dads? And we say we believe that, but our actions are
Our
opposite
actions are
of what,
opposite.
because what you believe should affect your behavior,
And let me ask you
and it
this.
doesn't.
Right, exactly. Um, what gave you the courage to leave, and how, no, first, what made you feel so loyal to that relationship? Because at some point, even with me, when I was in my lethal relationship, it's bad. You know it's. I knew it was killing me. I felt myself slowly dying.
Dying. Yeah.
I literally called my mom and just told her that. Um, what kept you so loyal, and what gave you the courage to leave?
Um, there are a few things that keep you loyal to any abuse. And I believe mine was, I did not want to hear I told you so.
Pride, yes.
Because I risked heaven and earth for you. You understand
Yes,
what I'm saying?
ma'am.
I gave up my what I thought I believed about faith, though I hadn't gotten saved yet, but he would always attack my childhood beliefs and church and stuff. And so I went against everybody for you. And so I'm not going to do that. And there was something about failure that was the driving force. I
Mm,
didn't want to feel like a failure, because I had watched the women in my family not be able to stay in relationships. And so I'm going
yeah.
to. God will not be a failure. And I believe, I don't even believe I had the courage, after selling my soul. I don't even believe I had the courage to leave. What I think was happening was people were praying for me.
Yes.
There were those that were praying for me that gave me um, strength that I didn't know that I would need. But what happened is when I got ready to beat him and I felt myself snapping to kill him when I knew that I had the ability to murder,
Mm.
which is why a lot of them babies are in prison.
Yep.
They were in my situation and they snapped one day.
Mm.
When I saw that in myself, that I wasn't cowering, that I wasn't scared, that I could kill you actually for real, and I'm going to. It scared me to not be there for my children.
Yes.
And that made me, it wasn't like one day I'm like, oh my gosh, I could take him on. And no, I was like, oh, we're both going to die. I remember one day he told me, you're going to die today. And, one of us is going to die today. It's not going to be me. He
Mm.
held this knife up to my neck. And I remember what the knife, felt like right here. And I felt helpless. Eventually, I didn't feel helpless.
Yes.
Eventually, I said, well, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die and you're either going to be dead too, or you're going to have something to remember me by for the rest of your life. That scared the life out of me. I was like,
Right.
oh
Right.
no, we're going to die. Everybody's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
These kids might die. Like, no.
Right.
And
Exactly.
so it wasn't even courage to leave. It was fear for where I could end up.
Right. And if people who are listening and online, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them out. We're both willing to answer any questions. Like I said, we both were involved in lethal loyalties.
Yes.
My children were older than hers when I went back into my situation, so they really went through a lot living that and watching me suffer through that.
Yeah.
And I just, as your son told you, you're raising us through trauma. It reminds me of a story me and my sister would tell our kids. You just got to know yourself. You just got to love yourself. And my oldest daughter was like, they're saying it too much. I don't think they know themselves. I'm like, wow. Looking back, we didn't. But it was something in us that knew if we did, that probably would help us. So we can tell them that, but it wasn't the same because we didn't know how to do
We
it.
didn't do it. And that's how it affects kids. If you're trying to teach kids affirmations and let me do this and just go to the Lord and God hears you and he will never leave you nor forsake you, and then they see you live opposite
Yes.
and you are not confident enough to just say, this doesn't feel safe in any arena, in relationships and friendships, with mama and daddy, with church,
Yes.
with work,
But I was
and
thinking,
they know that you are accepting abuse in any form, it is going to be very difficult for those same children to, especially if they're strong willed, to
yes.
walk after you.
Yes, ma'am.
Oftentimes they end up repeating you, the part of you that you don't want them to repeat.
Man.
Many
So true.
times
So
that's what happens. We repeat what we don't get healed from, what we don't repent from, and the pain that we perpetuate, we will repeat it. Um, and so, and we talked about this in church. At 19, my mom had an incident. At 19, I had the same incident.
mm,
And I would guarantee you, once my daughter's able to, at
she
19,
probably the
my
incident.
grandmother at 19
Mm,
had an incident.
that's
And
crazy.
so, um, because I think what was happening is, if I shame you into behavior modification, that doesn't mean I show you how to be free.
Because
Shaming
that
and showing
doesn't work.
are two, it's
It's
two different things.
totally not
Yeah,
sustainable.
it is.
Fear, shame, none of that is.
Yes.
And and Pastor Didi, I'm putting the P in there. Pastor Didi, what would you tell? Because I just go over this. This is my group. I just I just want to hug and love and the people who are tired of telling the story over and over and over, but you're still stuck.
Yeah.
I'm your girl because I did that. And then you're ashamed because you don't want to talk because you said you're going to leave and then here you are again. What would you tell them? Like, what would you say to encourage a person that's stuck in a toxic, lethal situation?
I what I tell them now in counseling, are you comfortable with the view of
Mm,
yourself 10 years from now if you don't leave?
I like that.
Do you see yourself embracing the same? Because you cannot ever assume that a person is going to change by something you tell them or make them do. So, as your current relationship is now, can you see yourself in this place in 10 years and you embrace that? You love it. You give the warm and fuzzies. You're like, oh, yes, this is God's doing. If you say no, if the answer is no in the way that it is today, are there steps that you're willing to make to change it? Is that other person willing to change it? Are you guys going to get counseling and help? And if that has been ignored for the first 10 years and we're not doing that, and I'm not saying physical abuse, I'm saying verbal,
Yes,
mental abuse,
yes.
because there are times where God is like, no, you need to stay and pray, get help. If you getting your I's dotted and your T's crossed, you need to go.
You need to go.
Um, but what I've learned is people that are in a line of security blanket with their abuse, and you tell them to go, and they're not ready
Yes.
to go, they're gonna blame you. The
Yes.
abusers then turn their attention toward the one that told them to leave
Mm-hmm.
when it was not their idea. And so I've learned, especially now as a pastor, um, I can't I can't advise you to do what you're not willing
That
to
is,
do and take inventory of your life. The other thing is, what would when women come to me that are abused that have children, how would you advise your children? I ask them that, and so you need to take that advice. If you don't, your children are going to repeat you.
that's
And if
good.
you are okay with your daughter getting
Mhm.
slapped and punched, then stay.
Because I know for me, when I was first moved here, I didn't know anybody, but I needed to get out of that situation. So I was willing to be displaced, not with my kids, because I needed to leave. Because no matter what we pick, it's hard.
Yeah.
Which heart are you going
Which
to
heart are
pick?
you going to choose? Am I choose the heart of being alive, or the heart of feeling like I might die today,
Yeah,
every other day, or
yes.
I'm dying? Because sometimes I've seen this too. The man may not kill you with his own hands, but there are many women
Meaning.
that were convinced to kill themselves. There are a lot of
Mm,
suicides because I don't have the courage to leave. This abuse feels more comfortable than being by myself, because
yes.
by myself we have singlehood, especially in the church.
Yes.
We have made it a curse word if you're single.
Made it a
We have
curse
made
word.
marriage this thing to promote to. And then most of the married people, if you talk to them, they don't want to be married. Most of them,
Right.
if you talk to them, they on each other's nerves. And we have that as a goal to breach. And we celebrate that versus, my God, you are single and loving Jesus. Why don't we celebrate that?
Why don't we?
And we split the church. We split the church. The church is
Mm,
split over what
mm.
Paul said, a man that was single, a man
It,
that
it,
never had got married.
exactly.
That's
And that's why this
crazy.
I wrote this book, because I just had to be a wife. I tried it 4 times because I was brought up in the church, y'all. And it was a
Yeah,
disaster. Some of the situations were lethal. I was ostracized from my church. One, when you get in that, oh, she's single, y'all. What? You know that one commercial? Get your uncles, get your man, get your brothers. She's
yeah,
single. Y'all watch her, and you
yeah.
walk around. It's such shame.
And such
So
shame.
I better get married again so I get back on that
Yeah.
good. Get what the good
I
says.
just had a lady say to me, ask me, she said, why in the church, why can't married people be friends with single people? Why is that a weird thing or something to be avoided? And I said, which is bananas, because if you do the research, most married people cheat with other married people. It ain't, It ain't. And I had to, I was
Mhm.
raised in it. I knew, I remember being
Absolutely.
skeptical, especially when I was newly married
Oh,
and
yes.
highly insecure, highly insecure. I had to get healed, delivered, and secure,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I would have missed out on some beautiful friendships if I had a kept that attitude and
Crazy.
mindset. You know, there are people that are around me with God has called me to minister to strippers and prostitutes. I
Mm-hmm.
can't be insecure. I
You
can't be
cannot.
like I had to get healed and delivered and set free. And so, are there women even in the church that have wrong motives and wrong? Yeah, but they can't do nothing without somebody else's permission. So
Absolutely.
what I've learned is a lot of times what people were exposing was they were not trusting in the men that they married
Yeah.
because they knew he had a wandering eye. It wasn't even about the woman, it was about the man. You understand what I'm
I
saying? So
do,
we
but
made
we're
but
responsible.
but the women were responsible, and if and depending on what church you were raised in, most of the rules applied to the women,
Yes.
most of the things applied. So even if you are abused, it's your fault. And don't let them be in the church. Don't let
We
that
can't
brother be
we
a
can't
part of the
stop the
ministry
ministry
too.
and
Don't
let you
let him be
heal.
the one that make the money. Father,
Right?
in the name of
In the
Jesus,
name of Jesus.
we are going to allow the woman and make her stay in abuse
Yeah.
under the guise of God hates divorce. We found one scripture, and the man that's that's in the church, is not subject to Galatians 5:22. But the fruit of the spirit is love, joy, peace.
Come
He
on.
don't bear no fruit, none. His actions are abusive, his verbiage is abusive, his what I'm experiencing at home is abusive.
Exactly.
And we bind the because we worship marriage, and
Yes.
we are saying that God is saying that a person that's not pleased to dwell, because if you're abusing me, you're not pleased to dwell.
You're not pleased to do
If
it.
you're verbally abusing me, you're not pleased to dwell.
No, you're
If
not.
I'm getting verbal black eyes every day, you're not pleased to
You're
dwell.
not pleased.
It's abuse. They don't see
They
what's going on inside the
don't.
home. And this is why we got to stop giving our opinion on what we think. Because people even come
Exactly.
to counseling with half the story. They're not giving you the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Even if they're saying, well, no, we came to counseling, we told you. No, you ain't told. You forgot to say that you called her out of her name twice. And you get in church and do a shata bota Mitsubishi with your hand in the air. And she got to see you, her and your children have to see this life that ain't real.
Yep.
But marriage is the thing that is worshiped.
It really
And so
is.
many people are encouraged to stay in abuse. There's
Mm.
there are so many. I wish that my story was an isolated story
Me
because
too.
I was disobedient to my mom.
I wish mine
And because
was
I can
too.
justify all of that. I was disobedient to my
Me
mom. I got a
too.
black eye because,
Hmm.
I didn't listen. And that's the truth. Part of it is
Yes,
you, your self-inflicted situation was because you were disobedient. That's the truth,
it
right?
is. Amen.
The saddest thing that I think is that there are so many women in the church with husbands in leadership.
Yes.
Women are in leadership, husbands are in leadership. There are so many women that got foundation number 512 or whatever it is, 88, over top of black eyes and black arms. There are so there are
Breaks my
so
heart. Breaks
many married women that are
stuck in a
making
lethal, toxic
stuck.
situation in the church.
And they're advising single women or preaching something from the pulpit, making people feel insecure about their
Mm.
situations that they know that they are not living at home.
Yeah.
So I'm now, with my Mac on, perpetuating abuse, knowing that I'm
Yeah.
abused at home.
Yeah.
that is, I wish it was just to the young girl. I wish we couldn't say that this was not, um, someone said just what they see at church and what they post on social media. I wish that this was not common in the church. Many people live such filtered lives. You know, when we put the filter on our
Yeah,
picture
yeah.
and it makes all of the bumps and the blemishes go, and it
Mm-hmm.
makes us look slimmer
Yeah.
and skinnier, and all the things. So many people live their lives because we are in a filtered society.
Right.
Now my entire life is filtered, and I don't even know real from truth, from
Right.
fake. And so now I am not only abused, but I'm teaching you to stay abused.
You're perpetuating.
Because,
We're just perpetuating. And
yes,
so where does God loves me come from? Because that don't feel like we're out.
yeah. And I remember getting ready to blame God, and the Lord said, I didn't tell you to get in that relationship.
Right.
And I do allow people the free will. What we don't like, Mama Lynn,
Come on.
is when free will, we like our free will when we get to use it, but we don't like free will when it affects us negatively. But
Exactly.
what a loving God does is he gave
He gave it
everybody free will.
to
And
everybody.
sometimes other people's free will does affect you
Yep.
negatively. And
They clash.
sometimes our free will affects us
Yes.
negatively and our families
Yes.
negatively. We don't like that.
We don't like that.
We like, what are we gonna do with it? I don't like how you made me feel. I don't like what you did with your free will. And God, like, I don't like what you did with yours either. I never told you to do that.
Right.
So in
Absolutely.
good conscience, I couldn't blame
Yeah.
him.
Absolutely.
I could not blame him. Even for the molestation, he did not tell the woman to molest me.
Right.
We live in a
We
fallen
live in a
world.
fallen world. That
And
is very true.
she chose, out of her fallen nature, probably had been molested herself,
Exactly. Yep.
to do an act upon a child that was um,
Horrible.
heinous, you
Yeah.
know. But that doesn't mean that God said, you get to do this.
Right. Right.
Now, in our free will society, free will world, people do get
They
hurt at
do.
the hands of other
We do.
people. And it's very, very
It
difficult.
is. I agree.
But God also gives us a way of escape.
Yes, it does.
And he also provides a way
He
out.
does. Well,
And I'm so grateful that he
me
spared
too.
me.
I'm so grateful for the way out. And this Dee Dee Hackard has a wonderful redemption story as well, which if she doesn't mind, she'll be invited back when I do chapter 5. That's my redemption chapter, my way back to God, which is amazing that as this was as well. I want to thank you so much for your transparency. I really hope that this gives women courage to know that they're not alone, that there are people out here that made it past it, that got out of it. Was it easy? No. Did it take a cool minute? It did. But we got on the other side of it. And we are willing to, help you, listen, whatever you need, we're here. And also you can purchase this book on Amazon. It's called
Yay.
I Just
I
Wanted to
just
Be a
wanted to be
Wife, My
wife.
Successful Disasters, and you can follow me along. If I'll give a summary. I'll do one more live and give a summary, and then we'll move on to chapter 4. But I just thank everybody for their support, and Pastor Didi, thank you once again for you being so candid and so open. I love you, and I really
I love you
appreciate you.
too. I love you too. Thank you for writing a book and being obedient, because that
Absolutely,
took courage.
it was hard.
And many people will be set free
Thank
from
you.
this book.
All right, everybody have a fantastic day. I'll keep you
Yes.
posted on the next reel. See you later.
Bye bye.
Bye.